At sundown, two siblings drive to a lonely cemetery, complaining about daylight savings like it's the biggest problem in the world. Johnny keeps smoking and grumbling about the long ride home, while Barbara stares out the window as if something is waiting out there. They argue about wasting Sunday on a grave, until Johnny lifts a cheap bundle of flowers like an insult wrapped in plastic. The radio finally bites through the static, but the broadcast sounds broken, like the country itself is cutting out mid-sentence. Minutes later they step into the cemetery, the wide empty rows making them look small, exposed and stupidly alone. Johnny kneels and places a white plastic wreath, joking that they might be buying the same painted flowers every year. Barbara answers flatly that flowers die and get taken away, but her hands say she doesn't believe the world is that simple. As they walk back, Johnny pulls on black leather gloves, turning prayer into a punchline. He starts the old routine. They're coming to get you. Barbara dragging childhood fear into the open. Like a toy he can't stop playing with. Barbara snaps, calling him a child, and then Johnny points, because a man really is walking toward them through the graves. The stranger moves slowly, pale and blank, and the cemetery wind goes quiet like it's holding its breath. Johnny laughs one last time, until the man lunges, slams him down, and the joke becomes a fight for life. Barbara screams, runs for the car, realizes the keys are with Johnny, and bolts straight to the nearest house like it's the only island left. Inside, a stranger named Ben smashes the attacker down with a hard swing, then charges in with a gun and cold urgency. Ben checks windows, tests phones, and tells Barbara the worst part. If one came, more will come, and his truck is out of gas. Barbara drifts like a sleepwalker, while Ben tears through the house for boards, nails, anything that can turn walls into armor. He pins her focus with a firm grip. He is scared too, but fear won't board up a window. As he hammers, Ben describes what he saw on the road, a tanker pursued by at least 15 of those things, clinging like a moving swarm. Barbara sits trembling in lamplight, and the distant thuds outside make the house feel smaller with every second. Ben's memory turns into nightmare, fire, screaming, a restaurant surrounded, and a world with no life left in it. Barbara finally breaks, reliving the cemetery, the slow man, the grab, her torn clothes, her brother fighting, and Johnny disappearing behind her screams. She begs to go back for Johnny, but Ben explodes. Outside isn't a picnic, it's a slaughterhouse. She hits him, he slaps her to the floor, and the sound lands heavier than the silence that follows. Ben tunes the radio, officials call it a wave of mass murder. Towns collapsing, police overwhelmed, and the only advice is to stay inside and lock up. He hammers boards, drags furniture, builds a fire, and uses it like a torch to shove shadows away from the windows. Outside silhouettes sway beyond curtains, and the broadcast keeps listing cities like a roll call for the dead. Barbara wakes to a room turned into a bunker, while Ben finishes sealing the last weak points with desperate precision. Then the radio says the word that changes everything. Victims aren't just killed, parts of them are eaten. Barbara's face twists in horror, as the report confirms. It sees attackers chew human flesh like it's food. A locked door suddenly shudders, a hand claws through, and two men burst out from the basement, Harry and Tom, sending Barbara screaming. Ben storms down with his rifle raised, and Harry begs him not to shoot, shouting that they're from town. Harry lunges for the radio like it's salvation, while Ben demands to know how long they've been hiding down there. The argument ignites instantly. Ben wants to fortify upstairs. Harry insists the cellar is the only safe place. Harry warns there could be dozens, even hundreds, and once they know people are inside, the house will crawl with them. Ben calls the cellar a dead end, and Tom tries to mediate, stuck between fear and logic. They count bodies outside through the cracks. 8-10. More in the dark, and a distant scream proves someone else is being torn apart right now. Ben and Harry collide at the cellar door, shouting threats, until Ben draws a brutal line. Harry can rule below, Ben rules above. Harry retreats downstairs, swearing he'll never open the door again, and the house splits into two camps like a sinking ship. Tom brings Judy up, trying to keep everyone together, while Ben quietly promises he won't trap himself underground. Down in the cellar, Helen watches their feverish daughter Karen, and Harry claims they're finally safe, because he can lock the world out. Helen tears into him. There's a radio upstairs, and he chose ignorance over information, pride over survival. Upstairs, Ben and Tom haul in a heavy television, and the news confirms the impossible. The dead are coming back. The broadcast says monsters eat the victims, and civil defense is shifting people to rescue stations with food, shelter, and medical supplies. Ben seizes on one fact. There's a truck outside, and if they can unlock the pump and get gas, they can leave. Tom explains they're locals, that they found a dead woman upstairs, and that the cellar was just a hole to hide in, not a plan to live. On television, a doctor warns injuries matter, because whatever is happening turns death into movement within minutes. In the cellar, Karen whispers that she hurts, and Helen kisses her like she can keep the darkness from climbing inside her skin. The doctor gives the only real rule: burn the bodies, pour gasoline, and destroy the brain, or they will rise and hunt again. Ben turns that rule into a plan: sheets torn into strips, bottles collected, and Molotovs prepared to hold the monsters back. Tom finds keys for the yard pump and volunteers to handle the truck, while Harry worries only about the door being open. Ben assigns roles. Harry throws fire from upstairs and locks back up, while Ben and Tom break out to the pump and race the night. Judy and Barbara are pushed toward the cellar for safety, and Ben promises it's only until he and Tom return with gas. The run begins. A torch signal, a door unsealed, and outside the yard is crawling with shapes that shouldn't be alive. At the pump the key fails, fire erupts, and the mission turns into panic as flames and Phil threaten to turn the truck into a bomb. Ben storms back inside roaring for Harry, rage boiling over, and he beats him like betrayal has a face. After the chaos, they regroup, counting minutes to the next broadcast, while Barbara repeats one haunting fact: Johnny had the keys. Ben questions the distance to their car. Helen admits it's far, and Harry sneers that nobody is carrying a sick child through a mile of monsters. Then the truth lands. Karen was bitten on the arm, barely conscious, and no one knows what infection rides in that wound. As they argue, the television warns radiation is rising and every death in this crisis will come back looking for meat unless it's burned first. The screen cuts to Possess hunting the Walking Dead, explaining the method: headshots, crushed skulls, fire, no mercy, no hesitation. The sheriff calmly says, they killed 19 already, like he's reciting a grocery list, not a body count. Back in the house, power problems and hunger for control push Harry toward the gun again. Even as Helen spits that his choices already killed people, Harry bursts up the stairs with a rifle screaming orders, and Helen runs for her child, too late to stop what's already changing in the dark. A tiny hand shadows the wall, stabbing down again and again, and Helen's scream confirms the bite did exactly what the doctor warned. The house finally breaks, hands rip through windows, glass explodes, Barbara is grabbed, and Ben fires into chaos as the night swallows the living. Morning arrives with a cruel cut. Outside, armed volunteers drink coffee in sunlight, discussing the farmhouse like it's just another location to clear. They march past the burning pile of bodies, the crackle of fire doing what bullets and arguments inside that house could not.